Let's see if we can try another totally different Java problem. On the street at Christmas time, it's not unusual to see charities that ask you to supply a donation. Usually you'll see a box someplace that has the name of the charity on it and a place where you can dump money into the box. Another feature that we'll suppose that you can find is that you can walk up to the person who's in charge of the box and ask them how much money they've collected so far. So let's start that idea by creating a brand new Java project. Call it Donations is the name of the project. Click Done. That's going to hold all of our source code. For source code, we're going to need to start off with something that represents the donation box. So since I used the word donation box, I'm going to use that as the name of the Java class. This thing is just a single item, and so it's not going to do anything useful at the moment. It's not going to be the living thing in this problem. It's just going to hold our data. So we're not going to make a main for it. Click Finish to create the Java class. When you start making these classes, the first thing I usually do is think of what type of information these things are trying to hold. So when I initially stated the problem, I said that the donation box had a name or a label on the front of it. So let's make a variable that's a string that will hold the name of the charity. In addition, I said that we kept track of how much money was in the box, and we're just going to keep track of the total here. So we'll make another variable and I'm going to be really specific here, and I'm just going to keep the total in pennies, and I'm only doing that because now I don't really have to worry about a decimal point. Okay, so there's the idea that a class groups data together. Now at this point, the donation box isn't really particularly useful. We could continue on trying to figure out the details of the donation box, or we could go and we could switch to the main program and try to figure out how we would use the donation box and interact with it. So let's just save that, and we'll go and we'll make another Java class, and this time we'll call this the driver program, or the thing that actually does something useful. It coordinates the whole effort, and that's the place where we're going to put our main program. So this is fairly typical that we've got more than one class in play. The driver program is the thing that would make the donation box. So for instance, you might say donation box and that will both make a variable to hold the donation box, and it will also create a brand new box where we can put things into. Now, the problem with the box is that when you first create it, at this point, it's really got no name associated with it. And we'd like to be sure that when we make it, the box has got a label on it that says what charity it belongs to. The variable could be anything here. The variable could actually be called X. So the important thing is the fact that we scroll a label onto the front of it that represents the charity name in full. So I'm going to put Salvation Army as the name that's scrolled onto the front of the box. Now notice that we get an error here. The reason we get an error is because we don't have anything that actually is used to create that donation box. So this is the point where you use the constructor and you say, let's do something that will be used by new, and the thing that's passed in is a string that represents the charity name that's going to be held on the front of the box. What do you do with that thing? The value that comes in gets copied and held on the front of the box or inside of the box. So we're going to copy that value from the in-charity name variable onto the charity name variable. This, you notice, will make the main program happy because now a string is coming in and we're saving the value of that by copying it onto our form. Now, the question becomes, what do we do with total pennies? One of the things we could do is we could pass in the value of total pennies when we create the box, but for the most part, when you create one of these donation boxes, you're expecting it's going to be empty. So the name is something that's going to be sent in because you're going to scroll it on the box, but in fact most donation boxes are going to assume to be start out as empty. So what we'll do here is we'll make sure that total pennies starts out as 0. So the constructor is always used by new in order to initialize the value of these grouping variables, and you usually want to make sure that all of the variables that have been created have been initialized by the constructor. Okay. So let's go back to the driver program. At this point, somebody might actually like to do something like talk to the donation box and make a donation and give a certain amount of money. So if you can talk to the donation box and ask it to do something, supply it what you want to do it with, then in the donation box we're going to need that equivalent method. So we're going to write public void, make sure we get the name right, we'll steal the name from here, paste it into there, make donation, and the thing that we sent in is some additional money. And at that point what we do is we take the additional money and we add it to, which is plus equals, the amount of money that's already in total pennies. Okay. The idea of using additional word there, meaning extra stuff, is to make sure that when we go and do this line, that it's very clear that we're adding to the amount of money, not doing something like subtracting, for instance. So there's make donation. After we've added the money, we might want to ask how much money is in the box. So that's the word we're going to use to ask for how much money is in the box. So we'll turn around and we'll write that method. And this is one that takes nothing coming in, but gives back the total to the outside world, back to the driver.